Hello, my name is Julianne Deeringer, and I'm doing an informative speech on 9/11. This is my audience. That was a morning that started like all others. I remember it well. Our country was changed forever. A day of grief, a day of mourning, and a day of tragedy. Everyone in the country was going about their business as usual. The country was notified that 4 planes had been hijacked. The flight attendant aboard Flight 11 alerted the ground personnel that the plane had been hijacked at 8:20 a.m. Eastern Time. The first plane was an American Airlines Flight 11. It hit the World Trade Center's North Tower at 8:46 a.m. The second plane was an United Airlines Flight 175. It hit the World Trade Center South Tower at 9:03 a.m. Eastern Time. About 30 minutes later, after the Twin Towers were hit, a third plane, American Airlines 77, hit the west side of the Pentagon at 9:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Passengers and crew members aboard that plane contacted their families when they learned about the hijacking in New York City and Washington. The port authorities closed all bridges and tunnels in the New York City area. The fourth plane, United Airlines Flight 93, was headed to the nation's capital when it crashed at 10:07 a.m. Eastern Time in a field in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, after the attempts of passengers to overtake it. At this point, the world was in disbelief. We had been attacked by terrorists. Even though the Al-Qaeda say they had nothing to do with it, we didn't believe it. On Flight 11, there were 92 passengers aboard. On Flight 175, there were 65 passengers. On Flight 77, there were 64. On Flight 93, had 44 passengers. There was a total of 27 civilians and 19 hijackers aboard those 4 planes. The attacks resulted in over 3,000 deaths. The World Trade Center's South Tower collapsed after 56 minutes after being hit. The North Tower collapsed after 102 minutes. At 9:08 Eastern Time, the FAA banned all takeoffs of flights going to New York City or through the airspace around the city. The first time in history, the FAA ground all flights over and bound for the continental United States. Some 3,300 commercial flights and 1,200 private planes were guided to airports in Canada and the United States over the next 2.5 hours. Amid escalating rumors of other attacks, the White House, the U.S. Capitol building were evacuated, among numerous other high-profile buildings, landmarks, and public areas. President Bush addressed the nation, calling the attacks evil, despicable acts of terror, and declared that America, its friends and allies, would stand together and overcome the war against terrorists. As to today, our country is still in shock over everything that has happened. Numerous memorials have been constructed, including the National September 11th Memorial and Museum in New York City, the Pentagon Memorial, and the Flight 93 National Memorial in Pennsylvania. September 11, 2011, a ceremony for families of the victims were held. Cleanup of the World Trade Center was completed in 2002. It took over a year to repair the Pentagon. Tower 1 in the Trade Center will be completed sometime in 2013. And that Tower 2 and 3 should be completed sometime in 2015. The United States responded to the attack by launching War on Terror and invaded Afghanistan to dispose of Taliban, which had harbored Al-Qaeda. I'd like to thank you for watching my speech, and I'd like to thank my audience. Thank you and goodbye.